My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. This is the only channel dedicated to UFC picks and DraftKings lineups run by professional fighters and MMA insiders. Every week, I join Nick Newell, professional fighter, professional model, and ESPN Top 10 guest, along with Dan Kramer, UFC fighter, Bellator fighter, Ultimate Fighter alumni, and Jacob Lyons, a skinny kid from Indiana. And we break down every single fight, the betting odds, the DraftKings picks, and we set you up for success. All right, we have had two last-minute drops at UFC Fight Night, Rozenstruik versus Gane. We've had to adjust our lineups. So let's walk through what our lineups look like today, Saturday morning, just a couple of hours before the day kicks off. So I will go first. Oliveira being dropped off the card made me reconfigure, and I had to make some changes. So my lineup now, I have Ankalaev. I think he's as close to a lock as you're going to get on this card. His fight against Krylov is not an easy fight, but I think Ankalaev is a real deal, future champion, and I think he's worth the $9,300. I'm going Angela Hill. This one was tricky. I would bounce her in and out of my lineup. I do think she wins. I don't think Yoder can get it off. A lot of people in the comments are loving Yoder for some reason, and she's certainly a great grappler and certainly can submit Angela Hill if that's the world that it ended up in. I just don't see her taking Angela Hill down. Angela Hill looked, her takedown defense looked awesome in her fight against Claudia Gadelha. So I just don't see that happening. I think Angela Hill wins. The question mark is, how many points will she score? Yoder's not really finishable. So we'll see how that goes, but she's in my lineup. I think she's going to win. I'm almost positive she'll win, and let's hope there's some high volume output. I'm going with Jacoby over Grishin. We discussed that at length in the individual fight video. I think Jacoby has a few more tools in his bag. I'm taking Thiago Moises over Alexander Hernandez. He's definitely an underdog pick. Alexander is the better wrestler, has more power. But I think Thiago Moises' striking is more polished and his jiu-jitsu is really, really good. So I'm hoping Alexander doesn't want to take Thiago down and Thiago picks him apart, or if he does take him down, he gets submitted. Certainly when you have a wrestler of that caliber in Hernandez, the risk is he takes Thiago down and just holds him down, but I don't see that happening. I'm also going with Jimmy Rivera over Pedro Munoz. Jimmy Rivera won that fight the first time they fought. I don't think much has changed. I think he wins the second fight. Obviously, the first one was very close, but I think Jimmy Rivera gets it done again. And then I'm taking Rozenstruik over Gane in the main event. This is a really tricky main event to pick. They're both phenomenal strikers. They both have unbelievable power. Gane is a little more well-rounded and has a few more tools in his bag, but he also doesn't have the power that Rozenstruik has. So I'm hoping Rozenstruik will get the finish. We'll use that power and get the job done. At $7,200, I think he was worth it. You have heavyweights in the main event. It's almost a coin flip. So that's my lineup. I've had to make some changes because of the drops. I'm going to walk through Nick's very quickly. Nick is he's going the opposite way on a few of these fights. He's going with Krylov over Ankalaev in the co-main event. If you watch our breakdown video, and you should, Nick talked about how if you gave Krylov the exact same opponents Ankalaev had, he would win all of those fights as well. So Nick's argument was that Krylov has just had a tougher road. And yes, he has some losses, but he fought people like Glover Teixeira and other top 5 people on the planet. So he's going the opposite direction in that fight. We'll see if it pays off. He's going with Alex Caceres over Kroom. Again, his logic is Alex is the better fighter, which he absolutely is. The big question mark is which Alex shows up. He's going with Hernandez over Moises. Hernandez is the favorite, but he thinks Hernandez's wrestling and power will outdo Moises's jiu-jitsu and sort of more technical striking. So Nick and I are heads up on a couple of these. He's also going Max Grisham over Jacoby. He's going the underdog there because he needed to free up some money because he went a couple of heavy favorites. He also has Angela Hill, and he also has Jimmy Rivera. So Nick and I are split on a few of these, and if you want a little more insight into those fights, check out the individual fight breakdown videos so you can get an idea of why we went in those directions. So Jacob, I'll pass it off to you to go through your lineup. Why don't you walk us through what you've got going on here, and if you had to make any changes after the William Knight drop and the Oliveira drop.
Yeah, so I'm dedicated to this craft because it is early on a Saturday, and I'm out here doing this, grinding for you guys. And you guys can check out all our videos before, and we break this down individually, like Angelo's been saying. But we can start off with my lineup, the winning lineup. We start off with Enclave. Angelo mentioned it. It feels like this is one of the bigger locks. I think Angelo Hill is probably the biggest lock, but it feels like this is one of the biggest locks. He's just better everywhere. Then we're going to Vince Cachero. I love his toughness in this. He's not going to get finished, and we're going to talk about betting later in a later video. He's just not going to get finished, and I love his toughness. I'm worried about the grappling, but the guy's so tough. I had to put him in my lineup. Anytime you have an underdog Hawaiian, you just got to put him in your lineup. Then I went with Gane and Rozenstruik. So you'll see Gane in there for 9,000. You see Rozenstruik in my lineup. I think this is one of the heavyweight fights that you can double up the main. We'll see if it backfires, but I think if you're ever going to double up the main for a heavyweight fight, this is the one to do it. You got a kickboxer versus a Muay Thai guy. I can see them throwing combos. They're not waiting on heavy shots. I can see this going to the fourth round, and we'll see what happens there. I mentioned Angelo Hill. I think she definitely is the biggest lock on this card. She's not going to finish Ashley Yoder, and I have another bet on that. Again, look for our betting video. Ashley Yoder is very, very tough, but she's just not as skilled as Angelo Hill. Angelo Hill is coming off 2 losses, but they're 2 split decision losses. She could easily be 5-0 in her last 5 fights, and that record would look a lot better than 12-9. And my last one is the lock of the week. Moises against Hernandez. I just think he's tougher. And I actually think that he uses his offensive grappling against Hernandez and throws Hernandez off. I can see him coming across. His takedowns are pretty decent, trying to shoot, grabbing a leg, and just scrambling into position where Angelo mentioned uses a phenomenal jiu-jitsu to get it done. So that's my lineup. And I think it's definitely going to be 4-0 going into the main event. I'm going to lose one of those, but it's going to be a winning lineup.
Yeah, doubling up the heavyweight main is definitely a different approach. So we'll see how that works out for you. They both have a ton of power. I don't think anybody would be surprised with anything that happens in this main event. And a boring fight would be surprising. Yeah. But outside of that,
I didn't have it. This was the first week in a long time where the drops did not affect my lineup. So we'll see how that goes. I've been having success when they dropped, and I filled in, and I've been having success there. So we'll see how it goes. The only thing on my lineup that I'm kind of worried about, and Dan will talk about it in his lineup, was Cachero. I don't think that he can get finished, but you'll see in Dan's lineup, he'll talk about it. Moonhose. I love Moonhose. I don't think I would have had the money now that I'm looking at the $300 difference. I think I might have had 200 left over. But Dan, you can go ahead and explain your lineup. I love that Moonhose pick.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, Jacob, interesting on the main event, picking both heavyweights. I literally keep flip-flopping on whether that's an awesome idea or whether it's like a sucker's bet and we're all thinking it's going to go the distance. And one of these guys, I mean, if you look at both their records, they all have finishes with, inside the distance on, 90% of their fights. So, but I don't know, it'll be an interesting one to see. That's why I actually, for the first time in a while, did not touch the main event for any of my picks. But I'll run through the breakdown real quick. So first off, I got Ankalaev. He's a super good striker, very precise timing. And I think, he's also got solid wrestling, Sambo credentials, all that. He's basically undefeated. His one loss was, in the final seconds of a fight, he was dominating. But he's fighting Krylov, who's very, very tough and getting better every fight. I think stylistically, this fight is a tough matchup for Krylov because his style of fight leaves him open to get hit early. And that is a recipe for disaster against a guy like Ankalaev, who's very precise, very powerful. So I think Krylov is live and can certainly make it an ugly fight. But I think in that first and second round, as he has to close the distance, as he has to try to grapple, he's going, throw punches to get in. He's going to leave himself open for a big shot. So I'm thinking Ankalaev's going to win this fight. I think he's, this is somebody that everyone's been saying could be a future champ. I think this is going to be the fight that either shows that or not. I think it will show that, so we'll find out. But I've got Ankalaev for the 9,300, thinking he's going to get an early finish. Next up, I got Davis over Mazo, however you say it. I just think, watching the last few fights of Mazo, she's somehow found a way to win, but she's been losing more rounds than winning in most of those fights. The last fight, she was cruising to a decision loss, and she pulled off a head kick knockout in the third round. There were a couple other fights where arguably could have went the other way. So I don't think she's shown any real dominance yet, whereas Davis has fought the best of the best in the division, went the distance, been competitive, and she's the type of fighter who's going to push the pace, be aggressive, get in your face. I watched some interviews and stuff with her. She's had a full training camp for this. So I expect her to be very, very live in this fight. I think she actually will win the fight as well. But for $7,300, she's a great value in DraftKings. Then I got De La Rosa. So this was one that I bounced around with. I had Kroom as an option, and I ultimately ended up going with De La Rosa just because I think her wrestling and her size and just takedowns are going to be a big factor in this fight. I will say that Bueno Silva looks to be the better striker, but De La Rosa has been improving every fight. She's looked really competitive against some high-level strikers. So I just think the wrestling is going to be the X factor. So especially watching Bueno Silva in a few fights, she stays on her back. She doesn't try to get up. So if she hasn't worked on that, assuming she has, but I mean, for the last few fights, she's gotten taken down. She's fallen in love with going for submissions, but very willing to stay on her back and play jiu-jitsu. I think that's a recipe for disaster against De La Rosa unless she pulls out a lucky sub. So for $7,800, I got her. Then I got Angela Hill over Yoder. I think Angela Hill is just going to probably dominate this fight. I know she took it a little short notice, so that's not always a good thing. But she looked to be in great shape at the weigh-ins, and I think she's just going to push the pace. Her takedown defense looks solid. I think Yoder needs to get this fight to the mat to win. I think she's going to have a hard time doing that. And I think Angela Hill is probably going to throw out a ton of volume, hopefully get a bunch of points. A little more expensive than I wanted to pay at $9,200, but out of all the more expensive options, I liked her. Then I got Jacoby over Grishin. So this is another one that I was on the fence about early on, and then after the weigh-ins, it kind of sealed the deal. So Grishin came in, I think, 5 pounds overweight or 4.5 pounds, something like that. And Jacoby has looked awesome his last few fights. His kickboxing is great. His takedown defense looked really good a couple fights ago. So while Grishin is a veteran and fought the best of, a lot of really tough guys over the course of the last, 10 years, whatever it is, he hasn't looked great lately. He's been very passive, been just kind of, sitting back, waiting for a big counter shot. So I think Jacoby's going to, have a lot of output, ton of volume. I think he's going to be the better kickboxer. The only concern is, like I said, Grishin will wait for that big counter power shot. So he's live for an upset or live for a knockout with a big counter, or he could try to grapple the whole time. But I just think Jacoby's the overall better, more athletic, younger fighter right now. And then last up, I got Munoz over Rivera. So I think this is a pick'em fight. And at $7,900, I'll take Munoz all day. Guy's a zombie. He's very, very good. He can take shots to give him back. So, Rivera's got wrestling, but Munoz has a great ground game. I think Munoz is very, very good everywhere. Rivera is as well. So I think this is an even fight that's got fight of the night written all over it. So for $7,900, Munoz all day. And I think he's got a good chance of winning this fight.
Yeah, I like your lineup. I like mine, obviously, but I think yours is the next to mine, my favorite. I like the Alexis Davis pick for sure. I picked her to win in our breakdown video. I just didn't, I didn't really have a slot for her in my lineup the way I did it, but I think crafty vet, I think it's a boring fight, honestly. I think she holds Mazo against the cage, eliminates all distance and all chance for Mazo to use her length and throw those big shots. And I think it's a boring fight and there's not a lot of points there, but I do think she wins. So
$7,300, I'll take that all day.
Yeah, I had
50 points for $7,300.
I had a quick question for you guys about the weight cuts and stuff, because you mentioned Grisham missed by 4.5 pounds. And I know Angela's mentioned this before, that sometimes it seems like if someone misses by a pound, that they're really trying to cut that weight and it can really be a tough weight cut. But if they miss by 4.5, it's almost like, I knew I wasn't going to make it. We'll get close, and it could be an advantage. Do you think that's an advantage for him in that fight if he's coming in a little heavy, if he didn't try to cut the weight?
Yeah, I can answer that one. So, it depends how it went down, because a lot of guys will try to get down to the weight. They'll get within a pound. They'll feel like they're dying, realize they're not going to make it, and say, screw it. I need water. I'm drinking water up until the weigh-ins because I already missed weight. Why struggle for another 4 hours, 3 hours, whatever it is? So he could have been trying to get down. I'm sure he did try to get lower than the 4.5, but once you decide you're giving up on that, there's no sense to keep yourself dying for an extra couple hours. So I'm sure he probably drank fluids, after he realized he wasn't going to make it. So I'm not a big believer. I mean, I used to cut a lot of weight when I went to 170, and I felt pretty good, or I thought I felt pretty good at the time, but I didn't realize how much better I probably could have felt had I not cut all that weight. I used to land, for my first fight in the UFC, I landed in Vegas on Tuesday at like 190, and I was 170 by Friday weigh-in. So it was definitely brutal. It was tough. And then when I went up to 185, I mean, it was easy. I walked around, 198, 200, didn't walk around, but I got down in training camp to 198, 200 very comfortably. And then I cut, between 13, 15 pounds of water, which at that point was not that hard. So, and I felt much better. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, to me, that weight miss shows a couple things potentially, especially after his last couple performances where he's been slow and just kind of waiting. Like, he might not be in the best shape, and when you miss weight by 4.5 pounds, it just overall preparedness just doesn't feel like it's there. So, I think Jacoby hopefully will be able to turn it up and push the pace on him.
Yeah, I agree. And you mentioned it before, Jacob. When I see somebody miss weight by 0.5 pound or 1 pound, they really tried and couldn't do it, and they're sucked out and they're exhausted, and you're not going to rehydrate in 24 hours. It's just not going to happen that way. When I see somebody miss by 4 pounds, it could be what Dan said, where they got really close and then drank and ballooned up, or it could be just a lack of effort.
Give up early too. Some guys will just give up. Yeah, I've seen guys just straight up give up with 5 hours left.
Yeah,
and it's like, I don't know, man. I know it sucks, but you signed a contract to do
everyone
something.
Everyone does it. Yeah, everyone does
it. It's
it.
the minimum. But making weight is literally the bare minimum. So 4 pounds to me is actually more questionable than 1 pound. 1 pound, I know for a fact you're exhausted. You tried and couldn't get there, and you squeezed out every drop. 4 pounds, I don't know. I don't know. It could not be a problem at all, because he could have said, screw it. I'm not going to go any further. I'll be fine. Just let him take 20% of my purse. So we'll see. It's not a good thing in any world. Yeah. It's just a matter of.
I was going to say that mentality alone, I don't like. You know what I mean? Yeah. For me, at least personally, like, the weight cut was almost like the first competition for me. Like, that was the fight before the fight. So if you're willing to give up on things like that early, I don't know.
Well, and anybody who watches this, so I've managed professional fighters for a long time. The way this works, it goes one of two ways when you miss weight. I either get a phone call a few hours before or the day before saying, hey, Dan's opponent is way over. Do you want to restructure this for a catch weight? So then it's up to us to say, okay, yeah, we'll do it at a catch weight. And then Dan gets no money because we've just changed the deal. Or we say, no, make him cut. We're not changing this. And then we make him cut, he misses weight, and then maybe we get a 20%. Or they tell nobody, and he just shows up, steps on the scale, overweight, and then we sort it out then if the commission will even allow the fight to continue. And then second, what's the penalty for missing weight? So there's a million factors here. There is some strategy to missing weight sometimes, but 4 pounds is a lot. I agree with Dan. It shows more of a lack of effort than anything else, and that's not a good thing going into this fight. Before you go, check out the description below. In there, we have links to our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram, and more importantly, to our DraftKings League. Check out the league, join the league, participate in the contests, and as we get going and as you start winning, we're going to start handing out gift cards and participating and doing things like that. So check those out. Every week, there are drops on every fight card. So make sure you check out this channel and our social media on Saturday before the fights start so that you have our most updated lineups and picks.